Innovation is a word we hear a lot in education, but what does it really mean, and is it actually necessary? Today's guest shares his thoughts on innovation and how, in a lot of ways, it's just good teaching. Welcome to Pass the Baton, Empowering Students in Music Education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad to be back with you today.
Yeah. So, Theresa, I know you've kind of, this podcast is coming out at a different time, but we're on break, renewing our, having a nice break from the semester. But like, you always have things you're thinking about. What's a thing this semester that like has you still thinking about, or has maybe you've shifted your thinking a little bit about it?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So let's see. Last semester, so the fall semester, I took an interesting class called Design and Education, and it was not through the School of Music. It was through the College of Education, which was a little bit scary because leaving the music building is scary.
Yeah.
But it was actually really, really interesting, and we talked a lot about like the role of design in education and just the role of design in general. And what was fascinating to me was how much the design process and the creative process are very similar. So I'll kind of back up a little bit. For the longest time, I thought of it as the design thinking process, all capital letters. Like this is a thing and this is a process and here are the steps and here's how you design something. And I'm ashamed to admit it, I thought the same way about like the creative process. I kind of just assumed it was like, this is step one and then step two, and there's been various like researchers and philosophers who've said things like that. But the biggest thing that I realized was they're not capital letter things.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both really messy. Design and creativity are messy things. It's not like, here are the steps and then ta-da, you've got a thing. It's like, no, maybe you start something and you try some things and then you go back to the beginning and then maybe you put it down and then maybe you walk away and it was really just interesting thinking about how similar design and creativity are in that way, that it's not like, you have to start by thinking about the user. And then the next step you have to do is, to come up with the prototypes. It really can go in circles. So I don't know. Does that make sense how I'm describing it?
Yeah, it does. I think so like the components are kind of still there, but it's not this, you start here, you end here, and then you've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's messy. It's a lot of forwards, backwards, all over the place, which makes sense in like, when I think about an experience, I'm all over the board. It's not like step by step, and then I can check the things off. I did those things.
Right. And not only is the experience going to be different for you and different for me and different for the next person, but your experience might be different every time as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You won't always follow that same set of steps to design something, whether it's designing an experience or designing a product or designing a piece of music, it's not always going to look the same, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Right. I thought that was just an interesting thing as I was finishing up my final reflection paper for that class, was just thinking about like how similar design and creativity are in that respect, that, there's not just one way to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of even relates a little bit to today's podcast guest, right? Because he was showing us that there's not just one way to do music education.
Nope. And innovation is a great tool for moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of give the listeners some background. So I mentioned this in the interview, but, I first heard Rob, our guest today, talking on George Couros' podcast. And George Couros is the author of the book, The Innovator's Mindset. He has a podcast about it. And I've always loved George's work. But what's also really neat about it is if it weren't for George and that book, Kathryn and I probably wouldn't have met. I mean, maybe we would have connected, but that was it.
It was a big part of both of our growth and just our journey together, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess essentially Kathryn and I both read The Innovator's Mindset. We think it might have been 6 years ago, but it might have been longer. We're not sure.
I'm not going to count. I'm not
We're
going to
not going
count.
to count. Nope. No, we both had read the book, and George was doing basically an online book study on Twitter. So there
Yeah.
were Twitter chats. That was where we both started blogging, right? We were
Yep.
encouraged to set up blogs. There were like YouTube lives. There were all these different things. And I think you and I were potentially two of the only music teachers, or at least the two of the most active music teachers involved in that book study.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how we connected.
Yeah. It
So
was really cool to get feedback from somebody who also taught music as well and kind of was in that world. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's neat to think, we met because of that. And then, we now have connected with today's guest, Rob, because of George's podcast. And
Yeah.
now we're sharing all of that with you. So
Yeah.
yay, love it.
Yeah.
So before we get to the interview, just to remind everyone listening, you can definitely find show notes, which are going to include links, various things that were mentioned today on the podcast. You'll be able to find them either in your podcast player or linked below in YouTube, if that's where you are watching.
Yeah, if you like today's interview, which we know you will, leaving us, subscribing or leaving us a review is super, super helpful in getting the message out to other people. So that would be great.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And then we also have the Buy Me a Coffee site. So if you're interested in just kind of giving some support to pass the baton, what do we say? It's less than the cost of a cup of coffee,
Yep.
just to be able to send some help. Hosting fees, just all of the various little expenses that come along with this. All right. Welcome back to the Pass Baton podcast. We are so excited to be joined today by Dr. Rob Pethel. We've been having a little conversation. I first heard about Rob when he did an interview with George Couros, which is one of our, educator, author, podcaster, people that we follow. Kathryn and I really enjoy all of his work. And we were so excited to hear a music teacher being interviewed on George's podcast. So Rob, welcome. Thanks for being here.
So glad to be here. Yeah, glad we have that connection with George.
Yeah, he does some great work. He really does.
Yeah. Well, could you take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I'm a Georgia native. Been teaching music in Atlanta for a long time. I teach primarily virtually for the past 3 years. I teach at the Atlanta Virtual Academy. Before that, I taught guitar, chorus, piano, general music, even a Spanish class at a middle school in a traditional setting. But yeah, after the pandemic, went straight to the virtual world and then tried to keep some of those gems that we found in the pandemic and polish them up and then take them to the next level.
That's awesome that you're able to still teach virtually. And it sounds like, from what I've heard you say in our conversation now and what you talked about with George, that you are doing it intentionally in a way that it really is working for the students. Like some of the what was it, the chaos moments that we needed during the pandemic.
That's the goal.
Yeah, very cool. So, on George's podcast, the podcast was called the Innovator's Mindset Podcast. And if I understand correctly, you also read his book, The Innovator's Mindset, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So what does innovation mean in your world? And why is that something that music educators should be thinking about?
That's a great question. Well, to take it back to the connection with George, and I found about him because so many of our leaders in our district are pushing for innovation in schools. That's from the superintendent down. That's a big push. In fact, we have a whole office dedicated to innovation and redesign. So that's where I've always been. So I feel like finally, this point in my career, the educational pendulum is swinging into an area where I'm very comfortable and very happy.
Okay. So what does it mean to be innovative?
To be innovative means to create something new, right? If you're just going to break the word down, to make something new, so many times you try to find something that solves problems. So a lot of my innovation comes from problem solving.
Okay.
To take it back, some of these things I talked about with George, but, being a guitar educator in the traditional music education world, that's kind of a alternative track. So when I get into the track, it wasn't always really paved out for me what exactly to do. So a lot of things that maybe looking back at my teaching career that might have been seen as being innovative were really just meeting basic goals and meeting basic needs to create something that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so cool when you say that, because I feel like a lot of people we've interviewed, that's kind of where their innovative idea happened. Like you said, like there wasn't a path for me, so I didn't just like go on autopilot and go forward. I was forced to come up with something that worked for me, that worked for my students. And so I feel like sometimes we have people who come to us and they're like, what do I do with this? I have like 5 kids and they're all different levels, and you're like, and sometimes it's like, this is a great start of a new adventure, but we just are so tied to thinking, if I don't have a plan already for me, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't know. It's cool to hear you say that.
That's it. And being able to think on your feet and have the confidence to go for something, that's not easy for a young teacher. You haven't been in that situation. So that's why mentoring is so important. That's why having administrations that are supportive for younger teachers, and not just at your school, because you have your support level. I guess that's your vertical support level, but you also have that horizontal level that is other teachers, other people that might be in your music ed association for your state, other people in NAFME, your different councils. There are people out there that you might think that it's never been done before, but once you look into it, you'll find it has. For example, I was trying to teach guitar. I couldn't find many guitar resources out there or what to do until I saw a little ad in Teaching Music magazine that said the Teaching Guitar Workshop. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Well, I don't need to learn how to play guitar because I've been playing my whole life, but I don't really know how to teach it, especially in a classroom setting. Because most people, we learn in a private one-on-one small group setting. So I attended this teaching guitar workshop, and I saw the people leading it were just like me. They were that type of music educator, but they knew what they were doing, and they were swimming, so to speak. And once I saw them teach, I said, okay, now I know what to do. It took me being an in-service teacher to finally kind of see my what model I should use to borrow from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's about finding those people who are doing something similar or something, even if it's not completely the same, but you could just borrow little elements from.
That is so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like, that's how Theresa and I kind of found each other, in the sense that like, it's so cool when you find somebody else who doesn't have to have your same job, but just can like push your thinking a little bit and question you a little bit. And what if you tried this? And yes, you can do this. Try it tomorrow, because we do kind of just get stuck in having to think by ourselves sometimes, and we're in our own silo or whatever. So
yes. And when you don't know what to do, it's interesting, like watching how different people handle that situation. Some people, when they don't know what to do, it's like kind of fight or flight. And some people freeze.
Yeah.
Some people default. From most of the things I've read and researched about exemplary traits of educators is most people base their teaching style on the people that influence them the most. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. You teach the way you were taught. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what to do, okay, let's just copy paste what happened in my past.
Right.
In my situation, I didn't have a past to copy paste from because I wasn't in school programs in school. I learned guitar outside of school. There wasn't an option for me. I didn't do any music classes in high school. I did PE. I did a visual art class, but no music. So you have to find a new model. So that was actually, it was uncomfortable at the time, but it really forced me to do something and find new things to teach.
Mm-hmm. I just had this like incredible light bulb moment that I wish I had 2 months ago. So last semester I was teaching a class, and it was for, future music teachers. There were juniors and seniors in college. It was about secondary general music and technology. So none of these students have probably taken a class like this. These classes really don't exist, right? We're trying to get them to exist. And so many of the students couldn't really fathom being a part of that or teaching that because they'd never done it. The one student who seemed the most open to it wasn't in his high school music program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes like
that makes
not
sense.
knowing. It takes not knowing that culture to not know what people think they're supposed to do.
Right.
And that's another topic of expectations. So many expectations we put on ourselves. Mm-hmm. They're not. Sometimes you do get a clear expectation. We want you. A school administration or community or parents say we want you to do this, this, and this. But sometimes you might have an idea, say, is this okay? And they're like, yeah, go for it. Or they might say, no, reformulate it. But a lot of times we don't have to do things the way that we did them when we were students.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to think about it. But I agree. A lot of us do fall back on, we just teach the way we were taught, not the way we were taught to teach.
That's right. That's right. Another part of the influences that I had, I went to Georgia State University for my undergrad, and when I was teaching, I started my master's at Auburn, an online program, had some great mentors in that, and then went back and did my PhD at Georgia State. And the whole time, though, I being an alumni of Georgia State and also working in Atlanta, because Georgia State is in Atlanta, Georgia, I was able to stay in touch with former professors and former classmates. And that connection, that's great. In addition to our Music Ed Association, our GMEA, once we went in there with the guitar folks and we kind of found each other. We found all these people who thought they were on an island, but turns out it's this archipelago. There's a whole bunch of people just like you. Let's get together and exchange ideas. So that's where it goes, finding your networks. That's my advice to people getting started, like especially with social media and YouTube. Find your people that are out there, and sometimes you got to put your flag up. Say, "Hey guys, I'm on this," but then you'll find that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring up a slightly controversial thought for a moment here. So one of the things I heard you say to George was that not all musicians are creative. What? But music is a creative art. And I'll just add this at that, like, I agree with you. But what did you mean when you said that?
Well, music can be a creative art. I think music is an expressive art.
Yeah.
And there is elements of creativity in being expressive, but sometimes you can just be a cog in the wheel of the movement.
So what can music teachers do to help make sure that students are creative and that they do have a chance to, express that side of them?
Well, let's think about how the classes are set up. Find what your options are. So we all have to research what are the options. And then once you know what the options are, you present it to, really, you like to open it up sometimes for the students. And along the while, you can always teach your music fundamentals of timing, notes, pitch, rhythm, timbre, all the elements of sound. You can teach all these things, but you can do it in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like just the basic question of throwing it back to the kids, like, how do we want to, and is this like, how do we want to do this, or how do we want to, is that what you mean? Or sorry.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So find out what your kids' world is like, but also find out what options we have that can meet those. Because you might a teacher might go through and say, I got this general music class and I don't know what to do with it. The kids are crazy. Turns out they're not crazy. They're just not really into what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they're kind of bored and rambunctious. And so how can you channel that energy? So that's my answer. Find out what the options are, find out where the students are, and then put those together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you said you teach virtually. So like, how do you empower your students in a virtual setting? Can you kind of delve into that?
Yeah. Well, can I give you a visual?
Sure.
Can I share my screen? Okay. If I'm sharing my screen here, this is kind of the landing page I have for my students. Can y'all see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. And these are the categories that I like to offer kids, like, what are you most interested in? Like, here's an idea. This is a starting point. And I started with the things that I teach well. And if there's something else that they're interested in, I'll try to figure out how to do that. So this is where I come in and I try to give them more of a module based learning approach.
Okay.
So let's say they're interested in guitar, and then they go to the website and they can look at my YouTube channel for Music Prism. They can look at my Blue Guitar Classroom curriculum. There's a virtual guitar, there's a tuner, and then they work through the modules. And it might be that after they've studied this for, 4 or 5 weeks, maybe they're interested in something else. So then we'll come back over here and go to drums, or go to keys, or go to music technology. So that's how I present it. This is kind of my landing page for, okay, where do you want to go? Do any of these strike your fancy? And then how can we get in deeper?
Yeah. So it sounds self-paced for them in the sense that they're traveling through the module,
Yes.
in an order they want and also a pace they want.
The pace, it depends on if they're really going well. I mean, the great thing about teaching virtually that I can do that in-person people can't do is I am not, how much noise a person makes in their home virtually does not impact anybody else. It's like everybody's in a practice room.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing. And then we have proctoring software where I can see the screens of the students. So I can see what they're working on.
Okay.
And then they'll chat with me, tell me what they're working on. They'll give me their goals at the beginning of class. So I'll check back in. And then we'll have a time where, depending on the age level of the students, the younger kids, if you say, who wants to demonstrate, that could be the whole class. Like the whole class can demonstrate. Sometimes with your high school students, they're a little bit slower to demonstrate, especially if music's not really their thing. Mm-hmm. But while they're going through these instruments, we're also guided by this Music 101 that I've set up. And I basically broke music into 9 units. And it has a natural kind of internal flow to it. A lot of what I do, I go from the simple to complex philosophy, because I can't balance that many things in my brain. I need things to hang it on. So the studio setup is our first unit. That's where kids that are learning virtual need to learn how to use their devices, set up their tables, their desks, learn their software, learn the apps. Then we get into the elements of sound, which has so much science built into it. It's all physics.
Oh, cool.
Then we start to build rhythm and tempo. And at this point, you can do this with any instrument. You can do this with cello. You can do this with anything. So this is my approach. We have 9 units that walks us through the semester. And then as long as they finish their unit 9, which is either a sound trap or a GarageBand project that also has graphic elements involved, where they're talking about a piece and they're doing a narration, kind of a podcast composition. Mm-hmm. That's their end result. So it's all project based.
Mm-hmm. That's really neat. And it seems like there's so much element of choice in there where the students can go take the path that's interesting to them. They're all still learning the same basics, right?
Yes.
But they're doing it in a way that's going to be meaningful.
That's right. So could I challenge y'all for a second? Could we do something a little bit? I don't know. Sorry.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Okay. Let's imagine that we're in a virtual learning space.
Okay.
Easy to do because we are. Okay. Theresa, do you have any instruments around you?
Well, there's the pianos over there. Oh, there's a ukulele down by.
Okay, that works. Grab it.
Okay.
Kathryn, what do you happen to have around you?
I mean, I'm in the basement.
Any musical instruments?
A balloon pump box.
Oh, you're going with the found sound. And you can play with your hands, or you have some drumsticks you can do?
Yeah, because I guess I don't have instruments around me. So yeah, if I could do a found sound, that would be good.
That's great. Okay. So because of latency, we can't we can't do things all together. But in the virtual world, I just have y'all go on mute. And I can, if I'm the host of the thing, I put you on mute, but I like to adjust the camera. That's part of setting up your studio, right? So Theresa, could you adjust your camera where I can see your ukulele? Good. And Kathryn, you too. Let me see. In fact, I don't even need to see your faces anymore. I want to see your instrument. I want to see your instrument right now.
Okay.
And what should I play?
I guess you've got all the options, huh?
I do have some options here. How about a conga drum?
Okay. Now, I should say I have the ukulele here. I don't necessarily think I call myself a ukulele player. So I'm just throwing that out there to make sure that
Okay. Well, you know what? You look like you're holding it great.
Okay, good.
Can you just take your hand right here and hold the edge right here and give me a thumbs up and just brush those strings.
I don't know what's happening on Zoom right now, but that was kind of neat.
I know.
Magic just happened. Kathryn, let's give her a hand. Let's give her a hand. Okay, so you were strumming the strings.
I was.
Can you do one at a time? What about backwards? All right, I'm gonna let you go on mute for a minute. I want you to practice your strums. I'm gonna work with Kathryn. All right, Kathryn, what are you using for your drumsticks?
I found pencils.
Okay, good. What if you played your drumstick on your drum? Could you hit it in the center of it, like on the top? Okay, and we might need to turn the original sound on because that's counting that the Zoom thinks that Kathryn's background noise right now.
Oh.
And canceling. Okay, so let's do let me hear the top of the sound, top of the box. Just with one hand. Good. Excellent. And freeze. Go to X. That's your stop position. Good. Now with your other hand, can you play on the edge of the drum? All right. I'm still not hearing it, but I know that sounds. I know that sounds different. Which one do you think is the low sound? Which one do you think is the high sound?
I think the side is lower.
Okay. So whichever one. Yeah, and it might be what you're using for your sticks too. Mm-hmm. So if you have the low and the high, I want you to practice something right now. I want you to practice the backbeat, the ultimate beginner, easy, rock solid beat. To play the backbeat, repeat after me: low, high, low, high.
Low, high, low, high.
Theresa's got it. Theresa, let's come off mute now. Kathryn, I want you to practice going low, high on your drum.
Do you want do you want my mute on or?
Yes, I want you on mute.
Okay.
So Theresa now has the chords. Now, we're going to focus on individual strings here. What if you did, can you find the string that sounds the lowest?
This one?
Good. And what about the highest one?
This one?
I like it. I like it. Now, since you played a little bit, what if you did the low sound with your thumb and the high sound with your finger? And then go. So you're gonna do the backbeat. Can you repeat after me? Oh. Low, high, low, high.
Low, high, low, high. Like that.
And that's it. That's it. You nailed it. So that's the backbeat. So what we do now, Theresa goes on mute. Everybody's on mute, and now we're gonna all play together. Even though latency exists, it's not gonna be a problem because you're only listening to mine, but you hear yours in the room. Okay. So is everybody ready? We're about to do the backbeat. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 4, 3, 2, 1, off. X. And that's our backbeat lesson. Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand.
Woohoo!
Now, that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. Now, Theresa, if we were in class right now, I'd say, now, Theresa, you need to go to the music website, go to the ukulele playlist, and practice those playlists. All right. Okay, so this is a little video I made. I think I made this with just the track with GarageBand, and I think I just did slides in Keynote. And I gave each string kind of a color, and then put the letter up. So the A is your bottom string. All right, and you just follow along with this. So what I'll have now is I'll take this link, I'll send it in to Theresa, And now you are learning self-paced.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Meanwhile, Kathryn needs to work on something. Well, Kathryn's getting in and she's going to the drums playlist. There's the play drums, and here's the backbeat video for you.
The backbeat groove.
All right, so now I've set y'all up where you're in your Zooms, you've clicked on your things, and in fact, after you've had the class for a while, you don't need me to post you things in the chat because I show you how to use the website. So the whole point is showing students how to teach themselves, giving them the needs, but you're not sending people straight for these hard. What's that piano piece that everybody's playing now? It's the crazy piano piece. August Rush. Yeah, I want to learn August Rush. I'm like, you can't play that. What are you doing? So you want to give them the right things to play at the right time.
Yeah.
So that's how you teach. That's how I teach virtually. Is I have a kind of a starter kit for all these different areas. And then the kids go through it, and then the idea is to check back in with them and to see that they've checked off their things. They've played they've played off their checklist, but then they begin to find their own things and go deeper. Or maybe they switch modules. They find that next one that they like. So that was my approach. I don't really know if that approach is innovative. I really don't think the module stuff is innovative at all. But my job is to just try to allow people to use what they have at home. And I'm glad. Thank y'all for playing along.
Yeah.
Because you proved the point. Y'all had different setups at home. Kathryn didn't even have an instrument. But joke's on you because you did. You had a drum. And then you keep that drum. And you start to put some tape on it. You put your name on it. You do some stickers. You find some new drums. Now you're exploring sounds and tones and getting deeper. And then we're finding influential people on YouTube that are great teachers. And then it's just a ripple effect.
I love that you're teaching them, you're guiding them, you're there, right? You're the teacher, but yet you're helping them to develop that sense of independence.
Yes.
Where they don't have to rely on you for every single bit of information because you're saying, okay, here are these basics. Now you take that and go apply it to these videos or to these resources or whatever. And I think that is so important, especially if we want students to be able to make music without us.
That is it. And every good educator would agree with that. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the context is hard to get those things in place. It just happened to be that when the pandemic hit, we were forced to use those things. So we got really sharp at them. And what I hear a lot of people complaining about, it's like, man, we just went back to the old way of doing stuff, even though we were making great strides in things. And it's not that we shouldn't be in person or anything, but it's like this, the focus and the surge of technology, expression and creativity, and we were forced to be innovative. Mm-hmm. It's a survival tool.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like before COVID, it was like inviting somebody to come in on a conference call and talk to your kids. How would I do that? And now it's like, oh, that's Zoom, not a problem, And not so, but also to not just, like you said, go back to in person in my situation and then leave all those cool tools behind that when we are continuing, our school years, we're still questioning ourselves. Like, is this still the way to do it? Or should I bring in that guest and, or should I have a playlist of YouTube videos for them to go to and make a choice of how they, so it's like you said, don't just go back to how it was because that was comfy, because there's some really great things we learned in all of this.
Completely. Every good teacher we've had has taught us how to go get deeper in a subject. So that's what we're all doing. So that's how I do it in a virtual world. And personally, I love it because it makes everything very real.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's limited to virtual. I think anybody could take elements of what you're talking about and apply them. Now, can we put them all in mute when we're all together in the band room? No. And sometimes we wish we could, but
That would be a dream. You'd have to put on headphones, like
But
sound blocks.
there are still ways, find a different corner, put kids in the
Mhm.
hallway, put kids in the practice rooms, and you can still also have these resources that are available for them when they're at home practicing.
And
Because
then
we
come
hope,
back. Yes, but and then come back together and be
Right.
and everybody's better. Everybody's better
Right.
because even
Yeah.
though we're virtual, we have times where the students can come on campus and do things.
Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
We've had so many people too on our talk to us about, like, they send sections,
Mhm.
to a corner and they rehearse, and they have, like, not checklists, maybe you would call it, but they have a list of strategies and things that they have done as a whole.
Mhm.
Kind of like one of your module kind of things, like, here's the structure. Now go and listen to each other and
Yeah.
fix this part, and then we're going to come back and we're going to all do things together and see, where we've improved, etc. So, like you said, it can be done together. It doesn't have to be a virtual setting for that stuff like that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think that some people would think, oh my gosh, like, where's the human in it? And it's like, no, I've heard you say so many times, like, what you did just with us, you were conferring with all of us, making sure we're in a good situation, we've got what we need. And I'm pretty sure, like, if we went off to a module and started it and had a question, we can pop back in to see you or make a message to you. And, like, that human connection is still so vital and there.
That's true. And in the virtual realm, a lot of students who might be shy or soft spoken, their voice has now become just as loud as the loud kid.
Yeah.
Because of technology and everybody's on there. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
That's so important. I don't know. I hope that people who are listening, whether they teach, band or general music or music tech or guitar or anything, are kind of making those connections to how what you're saying can relate. Because we want them to be able to figure things out on their own. We want them to be able to play without us as teachers. I mean, that's always the thing, secondary ensembles directors we worry about. They leave secondary ensembles and then they're like, oh, well, there's no more high school band. I guess I'm done. Or no more orchestra. I guess I'm done. But if we can give them the skills to make music on their own and continue, having that, it's going to be even more valuable.
Yes, and giving kids multiple things to do. Let's say you're a viola player in orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
That viola, nobody says that's the only instrument you can play. Why not have a chordal instrument? Everybody should have a chordal instrument and a melodic instrument in addition to the voice. So having different areas, arranging and composing is, not everybody's going to be great at it, but you might have somebody that just that does it for them. They don't even care who hears it, but they get that joy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
Yeah. And we've also heard people say, then when you are trying to study somebody else's work, you can also then understand some of the composer's choices because you made some of those choices yourself in composing and creating or improvising.
That's right, and we can't underemphasize the force represented by the other people in class. Like when Theresa was getting ready to strum the ukulele, Kathryn was listening.
I did. I'm like, oh wait, I forgot I was supposed to be doing my practice.
That was good, and I think Theresa probably was going a little extra level. Like, okay, I'm on display now. I gotta get this down, and that positive peer pressure and encouragement. Feeling good and comfortable. Like it's okay to make some mistakes. That's the way. That's my approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah. So often on the podcast, we'll ask people, like, what is something that you would suggest that listeners could try tomorrow, whether they're thinking about being more innovative, whether they're thinking about, this idea of the lifelong musicians, or just something that you could impart that you would want listeners to try out tomorrow or next week in their classroom. What would you suggest?
Let the kids tap into their phones, because whether they have an Android or iPhone, or even tablets, we have digital audio workstations on all those.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently became an Apple learning coach, and am blown away at the materials that the Apple Corporation is giving to teachers, and a lot of it is just there. It's just in the books app that you can get. They have this whole sequence called Everyone Can Create.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, the pendulum of education and innovation and what is happening. Here's a great example. The industry is really stepping up and giving first-rate stuff that rivals or surpasses what the Institute is providing. So you have all these lessons in the Everyone Can Create series on Apple that is not really about a subject. It's really more about concepts and tools that you can do in anything, and then using some of the most cutting edge apps that you can use to make them come. So that, recording your voice or rhythm or making a soundtrack is not just in music class. It's also in social studies or science or language arts.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. We'll have to put a link to that resource as well. So
Yeah. All right. So one thing we like to ask our guests is, how do you empower yourself as a music educator?
Okay. Have you heard it said, like, you can't teach what you don't have? That's a very common thing. And one important part of education is what we call now SEL, social emotional learning, but that's been part of American education since the 1700s. But if for me to empower myself, I have to put myself in a good place first,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually first for me. So I begin with quiet time. I begin with prayer. I try to think about positivity and think about love and peace and joy and these things. I try to bring that in, and then I just try to be guided by the Spirit to share that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I start. Now, hopefully, that goes without saying a single word about anything religious or spiritual. That's just unspoken. That's what I do. That's because that's the ultimate power. Love and peace and joy. That's the ultimate power. So I start to have that, and it is true that will transfer over. So that's my go-to. I start with that good place, and then I think about each kid and how unique and beautifully unique they all are, and try to find a way to give them the perfect lesson for them at that time. And sometimes it might just be a kind word and some encouragement, a compliment. Sometimes it might be digging down and really pushing them to do some work. But it's that whole personalized learning movement. That's a great framework that lets me empower. But in addition to that, knowing, like, having your network be really solid. Having, I like to be the worst musician in the room. That's my goal. I want to be the worst one in there and just be around great musicians, and I want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I want to be around, great folks and push myself. So I have a lot of people I consider my mentors. That sometimes they're in the music world, sometimes they're not in the music world at all. But that's where I go. I have my mentors and try to set that up for my students as well.
Yeah.
yeah. And what a great thing it is to model that.
Mm-hmm.
For
That's
them
the
to
goal.
see, right.
That's the goal. It doesn't always happen, but that's the goal.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that we didn't bring up today that you would want to share on on any of these topics, or student empowerment?
Well, student
Just-
empowerment.
or, student
it does.
musicians.
It does tap into some of the question of where to go, right? And so I talked about it some with the Apple Learning
Mm-hmm.
coach and the whole Apple Learning, the whole Apple Teacher program. That's a free program that anybody can do. But the industry is out there. Some other sources I've found is Soundtrap, which is made by the parent company is Spotify, and
I think they just sold it back. But yeah, sorry.
they just took it back. Okay,
Just heard that they just sold it back to Soundtrap. Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, well,
But
Soundtrap.
yes.
Soundtrap is great, and their tech support is great. And they have representatives that I have several people that I can just email if I have an issue. The Adobe platform. I'm an Adobe creative educator.
Oh, nice.
Wow, that is so cool. And a lot of it is kind of music adjacent, but you can do all the graphics. You can do podcasts. You can do voiceovers and narratives. You can do explainer videos.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that it had all
Yeah.
of those features.
I don't use Canva. A lot of folks love Canva, and they do the same thing. So I would say look for the tech world, and to bring it kind of full circle, how our connections happen. Our connections would not have happened had it not been for the Georgia Ed Tech Conference, which I've gone to for the past 2 years. Normally, I went to our music ed conference for Georgia, And that's great. It's where you learn things, get down deep. And I still go attend that. But because I'm now in the virtual world, in the tech world, I'm doing more and more things in the tech world. So going to, like, imagine a music ed convention, but it's all ed tech. And it's a great place. So going there, meeting different people, meeting George, continuing that, and then learning all those technology things. So yeah, expand. That's my recommendation. Expand your knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
Find those other areas. Technology tools have gotten so good, and they're only getting better.
Oh yeah. We both love them.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, well, this has really been wonderful. If people wanted to connect with you and learn more about your work, what's a good way to do that?
They can find me. robpethel.com is a website I just built up just using Google. It's just a Google site, but it's kind of a link with a portfolio with my things with a contact. Love to encourage people to, if they're interested in guitar and ukulele, to take the Teaching Guitar Workshop, which is a summer program. I'm one of the clinicians for that. And subscribe to, as many influential music YouTube channels. I have one that it's not in the Music Prism channel I was showing you. That's not like a finished, polished channel. It's a work in progress. So I build things to meet needs. So the things that are on there are always student tested. And then I have a guitar curriculum called Blue Guitar Curriculum that's made for students to learn either in a classroom or at home. The subscription based. This open for students. But that's how those are my things.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure we have links to all of those.
Yeah.
Y'all are the coolest co-hosts I've had. Sorry, George. We had a blast with them.
Yeah.
And thank you for passing the baton. I'd like to pass the baton back.
Thank you.
Would you like the baton? Okay, thank you. And no, give it back. I want it. Can I?
Okay.
I'll take the baton. We'll all have batons. Well, we just break it into 3.
There you
do
go.
that too.
Share the baton.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Let's keep it going. Love to have y'all. Yes. As I'd like to add you to my list of people that I can talk to and
Totally. Yeah.
check in with and experiment.
Best part of this podcast is all the different connections we get to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you so much,
you.
Theresa and Kathryn.
Yep.
Thank you.
If you liked today's episode, you will love the PassTheBatonBook.com website, where you can find free resources, coaching services, and how to support Pass the Baton. Speaking of support, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Thanks again for listening.